We got Neal Pogue and
Hey,
Leslie
man, this
Braithwaite,
is years right here. I learned a lot from this guy. This was one of the first guys I saw sitting in the chair, and I saw myself in him. I saw, you know, a brother in the chair running the ship, and I was like, and he taught me so much. He always welcomed me in the rooms. He always made room for me on projects. You know, Outkast would be mixing, and if they needed some additional mixing, Neal would vouch for me and say, of course, Leslie's got it.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to mix records like So Fresh and So Clean.
That's
alongside him, and he's killing it with Hey Ya and all these other hits, and I'm right on his heels, just trying to keep up and trying to, and it's so dope to.
We getting into it. Yeah, you take a
it's so dope to.
No, I'm proud of you,
be
man.
in spaces
I'm very
with you,
proud
man. Like,
right here.
Thank you, man. Like, Neal
for sure
helped me come up in a huge way. So a lot of ways where y'all would look at me as a mentor, this is one of my mentors. True story.
And what's funny is, ironically, we know we done podcasts with both of you gentlemen. Neal's episode, have y'all seen that episode by any chance? How many people see the studio in this episode with either one of the gentlemen that we have here? For sure. Obviously, Neal's episode we just released
on Wednesdays, a NAMM special.
That's a fact. And ironically, when I was kind of tasked with putting this one together as far as this panel, I thought it was ironic to have both of y'all here because I kind of wanted to know. I said to myself, Leslie, you mixed obviously So Fresh and So Clean, and then Neal, obviously you mixed Hey Ya.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, that's so ironic that y'all both have the same group, but just like iconic mixes like in the space and stuff like that. So first and foremost, I didn't know that y'all had, like, not saying a relationship, but like kind of like y'all like just in the past when you was up and coming and stuff like that. What was that like? Like, what was that relationship?
So I get to Atlanta, and there's these two names that I keep hearing, Neal Pogue and Alvin Spice. And God rest his soul, Alvin Spice passed away a few years back. But I would hear about Neal and Alvin. And what was extremely intriguing to me, being a minority, coming into a business where I had only seen white males in that seat, to see these two guys doing it at a high level, everybody's talking, saying their names, and listening to what they were doing, it was crazy. Like, and I'm trying to keep up with them. I'm on Neal's heels, like trying to figure out, well, what is he doing? How's he getting those bases to sit so right? What is he listening for? And my early, you guys hear me talk a lot about things like, it's not about what plugin I'm using. Be more concerned with why I'm using it. That kind of stuff I learned from watching these guys. Because when I'm watching Neal and he got Preston in there playing the bass, and he's putting stuff down or mixing stuff or collaborating with people, I'm not so concerned about what Neal is using. I'm sitting there going, why is he making that decision? Why is he thinking? So I was always into what were they thinking about? What was the thought process? And I feel like that's the most important thing you guys can get out of these kind of things is, you know, it's cool to know what we're using, but be more concerned with why are we making certain decisions. That to me informs you, because it's about your taste, your process, things you may like, but the why.
Understood. So I also had something that I wanted to bring to both of y'all that y'all have in common as well. Y'all both come from an era of analog, right? But then you both also have mixes that you've done, or mainly now, in the bots. And that was intriguing to me too, that both of you have so much in common. So now just even seeing that you had like kind of like this tutorship, like, you know, tutorship with him kind of makes a lot of sense. My question to both of you is, going from analog to the digital space, what was like the biggest challenge that you had, like transitioning into digital, like the digital domain and just using straight plugins?
I think for me, I want to go back to Alvin Spice because Alvin was incredible, and he would do it at ease. And for those who don't know who Alvin Spice is, he mixed TLC's Creep, which is one of my favorite mixes of all time. And so not to have him here, it's painful because that was my guy. But going from analog to digital was painful because you know, that first Pro Tools it hurt my ears. It was very bright, brittle, and, you know, trying to get that warm, you know, that tape compression sound did not exist, you know. And so, yeah, it was not kind to me personally. You know, I was frustrated many times, you know what I mean? Just trying to dial it in, you know, so.
And to kind of reiterate, Hey Ya was your first Pro Tools experience.
Yeah. So trying to get that the sound that I was used to getting from tape compression and warm, from the board and all that, and then having that Pro Tools sound come in.
Right.
It's just like, what is this, man? What are we doing for? Why are we doing this for convenience? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So was there like a project or a song where you felt like, all right, I finally got Pro Tools down, I mastered it? Oh.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? So going back to that first question, but I'm going to answer that question too. So interestingly enough, it took me a minute. I was still pulling along with analog, and it was because of what I was used to. And when I would listen to Pro Tools, just like with Neal, we would listen to those early versions of Pro Tools, and it just wasn't stacking up.
Right.
And so I was still holding on. I would use Pro Tools and still use the tape machine and, that kind of thing. And then what happened is companies like UAD and other software companies have started developing really good plugins. And as the technology got better, it started sounding familiar. We started feeling that warm low end and stuff. And that's what kind of helped usher the transition in. And I always make the analogy. It's kind of like when we saw movies like Star Wars and Superman with the Christopher Reeve Superman, looking back on those movies, they were iconic for the time, but technology-wise, they looked terrible.
Yep.
But now we have the technology to do superhero movies like Marvel where they look amazing. Iron Man really looks like he has on that.
Right,
for real.
So it's the same thing with audio. It's just the evolution. And I hung on for a minute. Now, when I transitioned, I was all about Pro Tools and all about digital and all about in the box for the convenience factor, because that then opens up your lanes in different ways, and not even just about audio. That opened up lanes for me to spend more time with my family.
Right.
I could be mixing while I'm on vacation. I could come to stuff like this. I just got a mix approved last night by Pharrell. I'm mixing in the hotel room last night.
Wow.
So I can do those things.
Right.
That opened up that world for me.
Right.
And so the album, what's funny is I always say this, the album that I mixed totally in the box, the very first album I mixed totally in the box was Jeezy's first album, and nobody believes me. They're like, that's in the box? I'm like,
really?
I didn't
in the box.
Jeezy album, the first album.
Yeah.
Yo, I feel like
and then what? And the Akon joint.
Yeah,
and
it went crazy. I find it ironic that y'all first mixes in the box were smashes. You know what I mean? Like huge smash. I know he was like, oh, it's not that bad. I guess it'll kind of work. So, something else I want to bring up is, and I think it's important for everyone to hear this and know this.
I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm really running it through my head like it's on TV101. Those mixes are so tight.
No, I'm sitting here too going, really?
I didn't know that one.
And to that point, to tap on something I've heard Neal say several times, even now as I mix in the box, I think in analog. There's a thought process there.
That's where we came from, so we can't help it.
We think that way. So I'm thinking in analog. I'm thinking about tape saturation and compression.
Right.
And I'm thinking about that low end just, knocking through, which, by the way, I have a new low end plug-in. That just
we going to get there.
Yeah.
We going to get there. We can drive over there.
plug.
Go ahead. You want to say something? I was just going to say, one thing I wanted to also ask you is, I think it's important for people to hear this, being that you're in the box. I know we get into this world that we are in where people just, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but for instance, on Black Friday, a lot of us go crazy, right? We buy every plugin that we've ever wanted. And why I bring that up is because I feel like you two are such minimalist in what you do as far as your approach. It's clean. It's very tactile. You're very methodical in the way you both mix.
Man.
My question to y'all is, or what I want you to tell people is, can you please tell people your setups at home? Can you tell me?
No.
Neal said no. Well, no. My setup is super easy. I got a laptop, an Apollo, and my Focal speakers, and that's pretty much.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So laptop, Apollo, and Focal speakers.
Yeah, my Focal Twin 6s. I use a sub. There are times when I jump between using the sub and not using the sub. Again, something I learned from Neal. Yeah, true story. I learned that from him. I remember one time I heard you say that, and I went home and was like, okay, I'm gonna try not using a sub. Okay.
It's not for everybody. Subs just throw me off.
Yeah.
They throw me off. It's not real to me. You're adding something that's not real.
And I went
That's
home
just for
and
me.
tried it, and I was like, okay, I feel
As
you.
soon as you get took to the car,
remember-
man, that's it. Sound like a Tinker toy. You was like,
I'm trying to remember the project I mixed where I made a commitment to myself not to use a sub. I think it was like Rick Ross's second album. I mixed like maybe 2 or 3 on there. And I remember making a thing like, I'm not going to
No
use a sub and see how this comes out.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and that was it.
But he was the one that inspired me to do
Right,
that.
that he was like,
When I heard him
don't
say that, I was like, oh, okay. I'm not going to use a sub.
no, I could never understand subs on NS10Ms. I could never understand.
Oh my
that.
gosh, I
Yeah.
could
That
imagine.
is danger zone.
Yeah, 'cause
Now that is
you're
a
kinda
danger
blind.
zone, and I
Right.
think what works for me, and I think what works for a lot of people is when the actual company like Focal, they have a design system of these twin sixes that are designed to work with the sub and designed not to give you too much low end and really balance things out based on your listening environment. That tends to work out better. But subs on NS10s, absolutely not.
right.
I'm gonna plug the JBL 708Ps who are perfect with subs and everything. No, that's
Right.
Hey,
You know, that's what I was going to ask you too, because let me tell you something. I don't know if you see, but that clip is out and people were like, yo, like I had no idea. Could you let everybody know your setup at home, including those JBLs as well?
no, it's really a simple. I'm just a regular Apple Tower with the monitor and quirky keys. It's real simple with a shitload of plugins and that I probably use only 10% of my plugins, but it's fun to have everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know you go to that search bar, you go to that thing,
Yeah.
you like, I don't even know what I have.
Yeah, I
just
don't even
want-
know that I have it, you know. But sometimes because I'm not a template guy, so sometimes I'll sit there and go things. Okay, what can I use that's new and fun and but it's good to have everything just for that reason.
And it's so funny that you say that because I'm not a template guy either, but I think that comes from that old school analog. We don't do templates. We just approach the thing.
Straight to it.
Let's start playing around. Yeah.
Right.
So I guess you guys have a lot of overlap in placements and just artists you've worked with, some of the greatest and biggest of all time. How do you guys approach keeping their vision while also just enhancing it to where your ears feel fit?
Great question.
Wow, I don't know. No, I really don't know how to answer that. It just is. I guess it's hard to really answer that. How it just happens, man.
Right.
Yeah, and things click for you, and we come to the table with our tastes and what we know to do and what we feel, and part of that synergy is the artist going, hey, I have a vision, but I kind of want to hear where you take this, and I kind of want to see what you're doing, and they trust us, especially now in our careers. I can only imagine just from hearing Tyler's work. I know there's trust there. I can tell. Those albums sound so phenomenal. Every time Tyler drops, I'm texting him like, bro.
Wow.
I might have texted him with mad O's last time.
He's the first one that always gives me love. I really appreciate that.
That's what's up. Speaking of that project, we're talking about Chromacopia, of course, from Tyler. You mixed that project. This is the 4th album that you've mixed for him as well, correct? I remember we brought this up before, but kind of piggybacking off what you said about trust, right? And kind of like how you approach these grandiose like artists with their mixes. Like obviously these artists have a plethora of records out, right? Like they have a proven track record of just being hit makers and stuff like that. How do you approach working with someone new of a caliber, right? And bring yourself into that mix? Like how do you create that relationship? Because I think a lot of people want to know out here is like, how do they quote unquote land those kinds of clients? Like how did you guys transition into like, okay, I'm working at a higher level now, and like that transition of becoming that?
Can I even add a little to that?
Sure.
Because not only do you guys land these clients, but y'all keep these clients.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I
Well, I think for me,
good work.
yes, and it's a very simple concept. And Guru coins this phrase all the time, and he says this really well, but it's really about it. I know we all have the same mentality. We service the art, not the artist. We service the art.
We let the music speak to us.
We do what's best
That's
for the
what's happening.
record.
The music speaks to us, and then we give back to it, and that's how it is. But you just keep good. As long as you keep good and good work, when you keep doing good work, people are gonna find you. Because right now, I'm surprised how people find me. I mean, because I'm all over. I mean, certain genres, I'm all over the place, and how they find me. And that may sound ignorant, but sometimes I'm just shocked. But it comes just if you keep doing good work, people are gonna find you, man.
Right.
Yeah, keep that mentality, like I said, that you're servicing the art.
Right.
Do what's best for the record,
Right.
and you will never lose. It's always about that commitment to, I want to do the best work for this work.
One story you told that I found so interesting to me, that was like a real learning experience for me personally, is your start with Madonna, right?
Wow.
Madonna. I love how you said, who? Wait, who?
What?
Did a lot, I know. But that threw me off too. He said, who? I was like, oh, you for real? Your start and how you began to work for Madonna.
Might be a hidden message there.
You mentioned something that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to bring up where usually, or back in the day, I'm not, obviously that's a wild thing for me to say, right? But back in the day, the recording engineer also being the mix engineer was somewhat, I don't want to say taboo, but it was very different.
Yeah,
right.
uncommon.
And I remember you told the story about Madonna just saying like, I don't want the recording engineer being my mix engineer and stuff like that. What is that? Like, what have you seen that's changed a lot? Because a lot of recording engineers are starting to become like mixers. Like, it seems
Actually
like
started the opposite. A lot of recording engineers were mixing too. I'm going back in the day. I'm going back in the
Way back.
70s.
Right.
Recording engineers were also mixing it too. You know what I mean? So if you look at the credits, it doesn't really say mixed or anything like that. It just says engineered by.
Right.
So they would do both.
Right.
You know, like after you're done, you start mixing. You know what I mean?
So to Neal's
Yeah.
point, in the 90s, that was a new concept to certain people. Certain people
Separate
started
the two.
going,
Yeah.
no, I want the mixer. And I want the recording engineer just to be the recording engineer, but I want the mixer to be the mixer. So that was relatively new in Neal's terms
Gotcha.
to that. And I think it kind of fluctuates. There are people who don't really care about that.
Right.
There are people that just want one person dealing with their stuff.
Right.
Even now, like with Stuart White, with Beyonce. Stuart mixes a lot of Beyonce stuff too.
Yeah,
right.
He'll pull us in to help him out. A lot of times, really, I'll be honest with you. I say this all the time, giving Stuart all the credit. Stuart is an amazing engineer.
Facts.
And he only pulls us in to be on Beyonce stuff because he don't have enough time. So we call ourselves the Avengers because
Right.
he's like, we get the text. He'll be like, hey, time for the Avengers. And we know we're in album mode. And album mode with Beyonce only lasts a week. We got a
Wow.
whole week to mix her album. So it's me and Guru and Tony Maserati and Stuart, and we're all on the text, and we got to get it done.
Right.
But Stuart is her main engineer and mixer. He
Right.
mixes most of her stuff.
Right.
So
That's interesting that you said that, because I'm, spoken to him and I didn't know how like he is the one that
He's the
brings
one.
it all together for Stuart and stuff like.
And she doesn't hire us. He does.
Right.
He's the one that goes, all right, Leslie, I know what you the Sweet Honey Bucket record. I need you on that.
Right.
And because he knows I have a relationship with Pharrell and I mix a lot of Pharrell's records,
Right.
Pharrell produced that. So obviously that's going to be an easy, we're going to get that approved by Pharrell right away.
Right.
She's going to love it. So he's kind of like the quarterback of that.
Got you.
And so that's the thing too, is just having that sense of, you know what I mean?
Right. Understood. You got something?
Yeah, you guys have had the privilege and honor to mix between a lot of eras. Y'all have not only mixed between a lot of eras, but y'all have been the standard or the reference for a lot of eras. So right now it feels like music nowadays is very nostalgic. And we take a lot from the 90s or the early 2000s. Do you guys ever find yourselves going back on any techniques to like bring a feeling into something new?
I mean, I don't personally. I mean, I'm a little older, so I have an encyclopedia of being, from when I grew up. So I'm always referencing not mixes, just songs that I love. And once I hear a sample or hear something that sounds like something from the 80s or whatever, I just go back in my head and just bring that forward. So it's easy for me. It just clicks.
Got you.
You know
Got
what
you.
I mean? Yeah.
Something interesting you mentioned one time was, I believe it was Waterfalls, if I'm not mistaken. You mentioned something, and I remember you told me about there were some things you was like, I would have did that different. For both of you, are there certain things in mixes that you listen to from the past that you feel like, damn, I've improved on that? What part of your mixes do you feel like you've improved on over time? Because that's something that I feel like a lot of people.
Vocals. So like, it's
Okay.
so funny. One of my first big mix that like went #1 platinum, all that, was Monica's "Don't Take It Personal."
Right.
That is the cringiest mix to be like.
Really?
I had the chorus. I had the H3000 up too loud. I had the delay. I cringe every time I hear it. Now it has a vibe,
Right.
but man, if I could go back
As long
in
as the
time,
people love it. it's
yeah,
all-
they love it.
It got a plaque.
Yeah, it did.
got a plaque.
Did well and all that, but
Right.
boy, I cringe when I hear that mix.
Wow, that's interesting to hear that. Yeah.
For me, drums and low end. I used to lack in that back in the day. People, I don't know what people feel about that answer, but
which
that's
is
just
wild
my
because
personal feel.
that's what I looked up to you for. So
Yeah,
that's wild.
And, you know, I feel as though, you know, that
So,
could have been better. So
I
I think
him
I
Outcast
improved a
mixes.
lot.
I used to be like, Neal got them drums. They
He's-
smack. So it's funny that you say that because that's when I looked up to you.
right.
You know,
say,
it's
like-
my personal feel. I improved a lot.
And on
Wow.
your low end,
Yeah.
just bottom end and stuff like
That's
that,
beautiful.
for sure. We can tell with Chrome, like with a lot of Tyler stuff, like,
Man,
for sure.
Smacking.
Yeah.
Smacking. Just curious. I don't know. Leslie, do you have a low end plugin that you like, man?
I mean, you know, I got a little something that just came out. So I have this collaboration with Safari Pedals. I got into loving Safari Pedals just organically because I think I heard Tizio talking about him one time, and Tizio was like doing a demo, and he put the plugin up, and I was like, ooh, that plugin looks good.
For real.
Oh, yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah, we did.
Gotta
I
look
can't use
good.
plugins if they don't look good. I call it what you want,
Right.
but I'm quirky like that. If it look crazy, it's not going on my screen.
For real.
So when I saw Tizio doing that, I was like, oh, let me check those out. So I went and bought the bundle, played with them, and I was like, for me, you've heard me say this before, I like simplicity. I like plugins with just a couple buttons.
Right.
And what I love about Safari Pedals and getting to know him, the owner, he confirmed this for me. They only put the buttons on the plugins that you need to think about for that particular function. So I love that.
Right.
And so I started playing with him. I started saying how much I love him, and then NAMM hit me up and was like, thanks, man. Appreciate the support, love and support, and we started talking back and forth.
Right.
And I said to him, hey, man, it'd be dope if one of these days you make a low-end shaping plugin. That'd be amazing. He was like, you know, I've been thinking about doing one. And then he just texted me randomly a few nights later. Want to do it with me? Want to collaborate? I was like, yeah.
Wow.
And then we just started going back and forth on ideas. And the plugin encompasses my process. So for me, I used to use the Little Labs Voice of God, the Pull Tech, EQ, all these things.
Right.
So the plugin encompasses that thought process of what I thought about. I thought about drive. I thought about resonance. I thought about obviously selecting the frequency.
Right.
And the coolest thing, I'll just say this, then I'll shut up. The coolest thing I love about Safari Pedals is their blend knob. It doesn't work so much like a wet, dry knob. And what I love about that, especially when you're dealing with low end, you don't get those phasing issues.
Cancel that cancellation that it disappears.
You don't
the
get
low end.
that.
Right.
So that's what I love about it.
Interesting. What's so funny is, can I tell you something truthful? When you posted and said Safari Pedals, Leslie, we got a low end plugin, I said, I don't got UAD like the satellite.
Yeah.
I was like, I got Voice of God. I know it's a little Voice of God in there somehow. So I was so hype about it because I know your low end so well that I said, oh, this is perfect for me, and I know it's simple, and I trust that, you know, as far as your sound and stuff like that. One thing I want to ask you, Neal, that I didn't get to ask you, I feel like I didn't get to ask you when we spoke, is your favorite plugin. You know, like, what is your favorite plugin, like a plugin that you just cannot go without, like that you use in your process right now?
My SSLE channel.
Same, though.
Straight up.
Yeah, because I
Same.
learned on SSL, so I got to use a SSL EQ.
That's what we came up on.
Right.
Yeah, so I got to use that for.
Right.
And it's familiar to us. We know what to reach for. We like that grit. SSL has that grit. And I'm sure Neal would tell you the same thing. Like same for me.
Right.
Yeah.
That SSLE channel. Got you.
Wow.
I will ask you just one more thing. And then what I really want to do is, and this is one of the panels where I really want to open it up to Q&A to y'all, because I want to hear those questions. You should. I implore you to have a question for these gentlemen. I also want to say, and just say I'm thankful for both of y'all.
Absolutely.
Because
Seriously.
kind of what Leslie said about you inspired him, it's crazy how in my brain I'm like, that's crazy how you passed that stuff down, because obviously Neal was one of those people I saw and I was like, holy crap, like that guy is doing all this stuff. And then I'm a Full Sail graduate.
Yeah.
Full Sail. Shout out.
Shout out Full Sail. And I never forget my first day at Full Sail back in 2008. You ain't know I was that old, yeah. I saw you on the wall and I was like, damn, that's like that. Like, I'm not for real.
Hall of Fame, man.
That, yeah, the Hall of Fame and Full Sail. If you didn't know, if you go to Full Sail, there's a Hall of Fame and stuff like that. They have great marketing, by the way.
They might know who I am.
Yeah. You were one of those engineers that was on the wall. And I remember saying to myself, like, wow, like that's, I just looked up to you and I remember just discovering you that way and stuff like that. And it's awesome that, and I hope, Neal, you know, and I will always give Neal his flowers. I don't care.
Facts.
I tell people this all the time. What you have created and what you spawned, I just want that to be known and I want you to hear it.
Facts.
You know, and just respect you. So please make some noise for Neal Pogue, man. I really want to say
Absolutely.
that. Like, I feel like he will never know the impact So many people.
I randomly text him that. I usually text you that when stuff comes out, but I always text him and let him know, like, bro, like, for real, like, you inspired me.
Appreciate you.
For
I
sure.
always tell him, like, bro, I want him to know how he had a mark on my career.
Right.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. So
I got one more. I'm not gonna lie. It's not a personal. It's kind of personal. I'm asking for me.
go ahead.
So when
Let's go.
receiving stems and sessions, is there any issues you guys always run into, or anything that you feel like can be avoided early on?
I mean, for me, common issues are I receive sessions all the time that are unorganized. Nothing's color coded. I don't know what's
Audio
going on.
1,
So you got to
audio-
take time
there
to
you go.
mentally.
Audio 1.
1.
There it is.
Yep.
Audio
Yeah.
1, 2.
Every track is audio 1.
Yeah.
I have to figure out what I want to call it.
Yes.
I have to name it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Right. And that's
Color
Label
coding.
your sessions.
And then, of course, you receive stuff that is recorded poorly sometimes. So you got to work through that.
Right.
And, it's all kind of stuff.
Right.
Gotcha.
Make
So
it sound like it's on purpose.
that's like, yeah, okay, I see what you did there, but I'll add a little saturation to that. So definitely want to open this up to questions. Do you have a mic and stuff, Aiden? Anybody got a question? Please raise your hand. I see a gentleman in the front. We'll work our way into
Yeah,
it.
his hand went up ASAP.
ASAP. I appreciate that. State your name and your DAW for me, so we know it's a safe place.
Okay, my name is Melvin. I go by Marvin. My DAWs, I have 2 DAWs. FL for production and Pro Tools for mixing, mastering, and tracking.
You have a balanced lifestyle.
Legit. You
Facts.
legit.
Right.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys coming here today and doing this. The question I would want to ask is, for both of you, anybody, if you were to have to start from scratch, from ground zero, with the knowledge you currently have, what would be the first few steps you would take to get back to where you are now?
I ain't gonna lie. That was a
For
I ain't
me,
gonna lie,
I would try actively not to skip any of the process. I would try my best to, if I had that knowledge, I would try to walk right back in those footsteps, because everything you experience along the way adds to your learning. So I would try my best not to think I can skip a step. I would try to rewalk it the same way, to be honest with you.
I think it's more about just being more patient. About what you learn. Yeah, it's about patience, really. Because, coming from where me and Leslie come from, when, having this color here, we feel as though it's a rat race. Like we got to be 1,000% better. So we think that we have to skip some things in order to get there quickly. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but yeah. So it's just about being patient. And when people ask me, what is it do I need? And I'm saying patience. Patience is everything. Because right now I feel a lot of people are stressed and they need to get there and they got to get there. But it'll come there in time as long as you keep that passion, and just be a sponge, just be a student. Because I'm still a student. I mean, you guys call me whatever you want to call me, and that's beautiful. But I'm still a student.
great question, man. I really
Thank you
appreciate
so
that.
much. Thank you.
Heck yeah. Next question we have. You can go towards the back. We got to show the back some love. And we'll come that way.
Show the back some love.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Billy. I would say I record all of my, I'm a creative by trade. I record everything in Logic, and then I got to big up my engineer who's sitting right next to me. His name's Anthony, AM Mixes. I know he takes it into Pro Tools. My biggest question is, I was recently listening to a podcast with Ryan Clark and Nick Saban, and Nick Saban's one of the greatest of all time, and so is Ryan Clark, and they talked a lot about sustainability once you're at the top. Falling back, after you get your ass beat, it's easy to, find motivation to climb back to the top. But two legends that have remained at the top, what's some advice that you can give to creatives about sustaining up there, or finding motivation to continue to be up there? A lot of the time when you guys were talking about grind, you lose sight of the balance aspect, of the family aspect, because you're just like, I got to maintain, I got to keep going. So is there anything that you guys have seen in your years of success about maintaining that success?
I think we answered it earlier. Just keep doing good work, man. That's what it's about, and just be patient. I mean, you have to balance family life and everything. It's not easy. You know what I mean? It's hard. I mean, I'm on my second marriage. You know what I'm saying? So no, for real, it's not easy, man. You just gotta find that balance of patience and and focus. That's what it is, and keep that passion strong.
Yeah, and I would say, try to stay oriented to the right thing. And so kind of what Neal said. It's back to that same answer of I stay oriented to the art. The reason why I stay motivated, people always ask me all the time, how do you keep your motivation when you're mixing all the greats and da-da-da? Because I'm not focused on the greats. Yes, it's amazing to have worked with Beyonce and Pharrell and Cardi B and all the names, but I stay focused on the art. I stay focused on my last mix or my last set of mixes. Did it sound as good as I really wanted it to sound? Ooh, let me improve. Let me learn. So I stay focused on that. That's how I stay motivated because I love music. And if I ever lose motivation or get a little, because we all go through phases, I always put on some old school hip hop, the stuff that I fell in love with music. Like just 2 days ago, I remember a few days ago, I'm mixing this project and I was feeling a little kind of like, I don't feel like mixing today. And I put on that Run DMC Raising Hell album, and I was right back in my vibe. Like it was such an incredible album even from a mix perspective to hear what Rick Rubin was, the genius he was bringing to a hip hop world, and like all that stuff fascinates me, man. I be listening to like Mantronics and being like, yo, how did they get their drums to sound like that? We got all the tools now, but so
Analog.
that's what keeps me. Yeah,
Analog.
exactly. Yeah, there you go.
Analog.
So that's what keeps me motivated.
Amazing question, man.
Great question. Next question that we got. Anybody on this side? Yeah, he got one right there. There you go.
Peace and blessings to you guys. Two of the greatest. I call him the GOAT ear on Instagram all the time. Neal is the GOAT ear. Thank you for having this panel. I got a good question, man. What is one of the mistakes that you guys made early on that kind of shifted you guys to get to the next level that none of us didn't know the mistake, but you knew the mistake? Almost like the HD 3000 you said, but kind of in that realm, which shifted everything for you sonically.
One of my biggest mistakes, now you just said sonically, so I was going to answer the question without the sonically tag, but I'll still give the answer. So one of my biggest mistakes I made had nothing to do with mixing. I wasn't paying my taxes when I first started in the industry. And I was running through and coming up, and I was so focused on the come up and so focused on getting on this session and that session, and little money start coming in and start working. And I was always in work mode. So it wasn't an ill intent. It was just me not being as focused on all the life stuff. And I didn't have good balance when I first started this. I had terrible balance. I was a studio rat. I was only focused on the studio. I didn't have a family at the time, so it was always studio, studio, studio. And what, to me, the biggest lesson you guys can take out of this is you gotta have balance in your life. Gotta balance your family. You gotta understand the business of this stuff, paying your taxes, handling your business. All that stuff is important. And I say it all the time. I'm not ashamed of it because I fixed it. I learned, but I always want to talk about it because I want you guys to learn. And you got to take care of that stuff. And like Neal said, it's about taking care of family. And for me, and I hope this ain't getting too deep or spiritual, but for me, I learned a valuable lesson as a man with a wife and kids. I always thought, ooh, I got to go into extra hustle mode because I got to make sure my family eats and da-da-da. And what I realized is my job isn't really to provide for me. My job is to be a husband and a father. His job is to provide for me. And if I focus and do my job, he will do his job. And I mean God, but that's just me. So I've learned to focus on the things that are important, and then everything else comes. So that's what I've learned.
No doubt. Ditto.
Yep. Great question, man. Thank you.
Ditto.
Yeah. Another question that we have. Someone on the side. Who has the mic? Oh, you have the mic. Oh, yeah, there he is right there.
Behind.
Yeah.
Thank you. It may not be that serious, but I find this a lot when I'm mixing for people. They get really hooked on how their voice sounds, kind of like a template, and they get demo-itis. And you say serve the art instead of serving the artist, and I try and serve the art, but they're so stuck on how their voice used to sound. My guess is just make it sound good, and we're good, but they're kind of stuck on it. How would you guys kind of...
And I would say this, I know I'm talking a lot, I would say this.
No, dude.
I would say...
That's a no-win situation. But
yeah, and I don't want you to misinterpret my statement. I'm not saying service the art and don't service the artist. What I'm saying is what I orient to first is servicing the art. That encompasses servicing the artist. So you do have to have balance in okay, if they want it to sound a certain way, and you work through that. So I'm not trying to say it's a but situation. It's not service the art, but don't service the artist. It's a service the art and service the artist.
I find myself always serving the artist, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't.
That's just, no, you're here. If you're getting paid by the artist, you have to serve the artist.
Yes.
Definitely. You got to serve the producer,
That's
serve
what I
the
thought.
artist, because you're creating a service, period, dot. But, you know, what I've learned, you got to sneak some of you in there. You always got to sneak you in there. Just give them what they want, but sneak something else in there, and they'll never, because with demos, they're always focused on one thing. It's always that one thing. And they always say, something's wrong, and you just do just one little thing. Oh, it's
Find
perfect.
that thing. Yes.
It's always one thing that because they hold on to that demo for a year or months, or they've been listening to it in their car, and then all of a sudden now they want you to mix it. And if you do one thing that's off, then the whole thing's wrong.
And
That's all
sometimes
it
it's
is.
not the thing they think they're focusing on. So I've had demos that sound terrible, and they be like, make it sound like the demo. And what I realize is, let me listen to this demo and see what sticks out. And to Neal's point, sometimes it's the hi-hat is dumb loud. And so what I know is, I'm not going to make my mix sound like the demo, but I'm going to have the hi-hat kind of loud, because that's the feeling they're chasing. You see what I'm saying?
You actually mentioned something to touch on that. You mentioned one time with Cardi B that she came to you, and this I think is important about
Ringing sound.
understanding the artists when they're bringing you like notes and stuff like that. And of course, an artist, not a lot of artists are going to be able to talk to you in that technical way that we kind of understand. And I remember you said, for instance, Cardi B told you one time, this is making me feel dizzy.
Right. And I had to translate what she meant.
Right.
And when I heard it, I was like, it was a mix that somebody else did, and she wanted me to figure out what was wrong with it. And she goes, well, I said, well, how does it make you feel? And she was like, well, it's just making me dizzy. And so when I heard the mix, there was a real like loud horn sound that was panning back and forth. But she didn't know how to articulate panning. What she didn't know how to tell me is how it made her feel. So once she told me, oh, this is making me dizzy, da-da-da, I was like, oh, it's the panning. So I called the engineer, told him to take the panning off, and she loved the mix. So it's about understanding that language.
Right. So basically, back off on your brow emotion, plug in everybody, just back off on that. Cardi B does not like that. Oh, we got another question? Please? Plenty. Good. Thank you so much. I got you.
That's jamming.
Hey, how y'all doing? Hey, man, listen, I got to say, Leslie, I love your sound. Your mix is so distinct. Keep doing what you're doing. We love it. And I just recently found out about you not too long ago. But yes, but your work, I've known about your work for a long time.
That's right.
I'm like a secret agent. I'm real quiet. I'm just, I don't say much.
That's why I wanted him on the podcast so bad, because I needed people to
You
know.
need to, yes. And your mixes sound like there's no mix there. It sounds like the song is doing what it's supposed to do. And I love that. You know what I'm saying? So thank you for that. Thank you for your work. My question, so Spike Stent, right? So, you know, his AI too, and I'll be honest, I'm glad it's not popping off or whatever, but there are other people that are going to try, and there's going to be other people that are going to come with that. So as mix engineers, I'm a mix engineer. My partner Jackson's here. He's a mix engineer. New Space Podcast, by the way, check us out.
Love the podcast. You know about NIW podcast. I know it.
Thank you. Appreciate you, bro. What do you feel like is a countdown to, you know, what we're doing being less valuable, or was it a relationship thing, you know, or how do we navigate this over the next 5-10 years? I feel like we're good for now.
I'm gonna try to keep this very short, but I have a whole soapbox on this topic. Okay,
Go for it.
And it always comes up when we evolve as a race with technology, with things. And what I always tell people is there is no countdown. I remember I'll give you an example. When Pro Tools became more accessible and artists were recording themselves at home, you know, I remember people used to ask me on panels, are you scared for your job? Are you scared that you'll become obsolete? And I'm like, no, my job becomes more important because it does highlights how much they can't do what I do. So it's about talent. It's about what you are able to do. And it's about feeling and all this stuff. No machine, no computer, no mass, nothing can replace that. Now, value shifts based on what a market determines, but you can always find your place in a value system, and you have to adjust as well. You have to evolve too. So that's the thing that most people don't realize. So when people say, oh my God, I'm scared of AI and I always tell people AI is a tool, but you got to evolve to learn how to use it. Make sense?
Makes sense. Let me get I'm gonna get 2 more questions out right there. I got you too. I see you in the front too, my guy. I got you. I see you.
Salutations, gentlemen.
State your name and your dog.
Harry Otaku and FL Studio. Gang, gang.
Got you. My fault.
All right, this will be for Neal and Leslie. When it comes to hip hop, something I constantly struggle with because everybody has a different approach to it, especially when using samples. When and when not to mono the bass.
When and when not what?
When and when not to mono the bass. Because sometimes you might have some live string playing and you want to keep the top in because it kind of helps the bass line dance a little bit, but you also want to keep like room for other instrumentation and whatever delivery the artist is doing. So, yeah.
I don't know. I've never monoed the bass, so.
Okay.
As far as mono, you mean just keep it right in the middle there? I mean, sometimes kicks and low end is mono anyway, but man, people always ask me, how do you get your low end to stick out like that? And sometimes I can't answer that question because it's such a reactive thing. It's something that is trial and error that I've been working at for years. And that's why I think my drums and my low end feels better now, because it's just listening to music, constantly listening to old school music, new school music, just listening and seeing how I can improve in that. And it's really it's something that you just have to figure out, because it's hard to convey that. It's hard to convey, bass and low end, and that's like it's like a one-man sport, man.
And I always tell people it's harder to do when we haven't heard the bass or low end we're talking.
Yeah, there's so many, right, and it's so many low end, so many 808s,
yes,
so many kicks, there's so many.
People be like, how do I make my kicks hit harder?
I don't know what the kick sounds like, right? Yeah, it's hard to answer that question.
For me, it's more about like a double bass or upright bass in those kind of situations.
Still ain't heard it though. See what I'm saying? What I'm always trying to get people out of, Neal made such a good, the basis of his point, and I'm always trying to get people out of, don't try to generalize and come up with a formula in your brain about stuff that you can describe that kick till 5 o'clock, and we still won't know what answer to give you because we ain't heard it. It's about we have to hear it, and I think Neal said one of the most important things, which is it's reactive. When I hear it, I react. And sometimes, anybody who knows me knows, I say famously, sometimes I just turn the knobs until shit feels good. And then I'm like, all right, cool, right there.
And one thing,
it's reactive.
We always blame the bass, we always blame the low end, but it's something else that's in the way of the low end.
Absolutely.
It's not about the low end.
Absolutely.
We always want to blame the low end. Like, how can we push that up? No, get something else out of its way.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for that. Actually, I got a question. As far as that, would you say gain staging is a huge part of how you guys have like that low end dominance and stuff like that, as far as like proper gain staging and stuff like that?
Yeah.
It helps. Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Simple. I got one more question to give. Yep, he was right there. And then we're gonna wrap things up and stuff like that. Yeah.
I know you guys are probably getting burned out in this, but for real, it's such a privilege. I'm sure I speak for everyone for you guys sharing your stories right now. This is awesome. I feel like every engineer that I've ever known or talked to has like one hurdle or a bad habit that they really had to break, usually early in their career, that they just had to figure that out. Do you guys have like a specific thing that just like rings a bell in your brain that like you tried so hard deliberately not to do it, but you're like, whether it was muscle memory or a habit or your ears just like made you do it and you had to always go back and change it? Like, do you have anything like that?
I always had a habit of trying to be different, so I always wanted to do something different. So it's hard for me to answer that question. So I'm always striving. What can I do different? What can I do different? So I never wanted to go back to something that I already did, because I don't like habits. I don't want to create a habit. So I'm always trying to move
That's the reason I don't use templates. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, I don't like habits. I don't like.
Absolutely.
I hate when I see a session. Nothing irks me more. Well, there are other things, but this irks me when I get a session and I see a bunch of plugins on stuff, and this the most famous one. I'll see a de-esser, and nothing on that track has an S in it, or any kind of frequency any similar.
Or they'll have about 3 or 4 compressors on it, and they're all doing the same thing.
Yes, or they have an EQ that's boosting a frequency, and then later in the chain, another EQ that's taking out the same frequency they boosted. I'm like, But you can tell when you're looking at a template. You can tell when you're looking at something somebody set up previously to try to put on everything.
Just remember that compression doesn't help. Sometimes it's the problem. You know?
Facts.
So,
that's a T-shirt.
You know what? Damn.
Compression's not the problem.
Damn.
Compression doesn't help sometimes.
Anyway,
go
for it.
Me and Neal Pogue have a T-shirt line coming out soon. We're gonna do that.
No, it is. That's the one thing that irks me. That, you know, and I hate to use the word irk, you know, because, you know, it's innocent ignorance, because we look at all these YouTube videos and everything, and it's always about compression. And you really have to listen to music before you put the compressor on it. See if it needs it. But if we just love to put compressors on everything, just don't do nothing until you listen to what you're trying to fix first. And then make a choice of what you need to do for it. But we're always jumping, we gotta compress it. We gotta compress it. No, you do not. Leave it alone. But that's just me.
Stop compression.
For real. It
2025.
could be the problem. Stop compression 2025.
2025. We're gonna stop compression on 2025.
Make some